Okay, so welcome to the second live sessions of the 2018 Design Studio. Great to have you here. I can see that not everybody has joined us, and that is probably due because of the time differences where everybody is. But luckily, we will be recording this session and make it available on the Classroom platform in a day or so. So, live session number 2. Ezio, I know you have something prepared. I don't know if your video is working or if you can turn it on or not, but I'll turn it over to you to take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Gio, and good evening, everyone. The slideshow this evening is not too long, but I hope we can answer some of the probing questions that have come about the platform and, you know, how to put this whole thing together. So the first slide there is just the opening, the 4 dimensions and the focus on the design studio. And this is the second slide, is just a snapshot of all the 7 teams and you know where they're from. And the name that's in bold is the team leader. So I don't know whether you've got view rights over the what the other teams are doing. And I know we've had challenges with the daily forum of messages, but I'm hoping that you can maybe still select your daily forum to receive input from what's happening on the other teams, just to keep abreast of how the other guys are going and so forth. And then let's just go down to slide 3. This is the time frame. You can see the green pointer. That's where we are right now. We're in week 4, and most of the case studies have a very slow uptake. You know, the 1 or 2 weeks to select, and then 1 or 2 weeks to mobilize the teams and arrange each other online, meet each other online, and so forth. So even though we seem to have slipped a week or 2, we are flexible on the end date, but let's still keep track with the original program, and then we take it as it comes with a review of an extension towards the end if need be. So thus far, of the 7 groups, I've seen that there's been a lot of engagement online. All 7 groups have actually interacted with each other, and 5 of the 7 groups have had their first Kickstart meeting, and I've attended 5 of them. The other 2, I know they're brewing. There's been a lot of interaction, and it's just a matter of time until they organize everyone to be online in the next couple of days or so. So that's where we are. And in future live sessions, I'll be giving a more comprehensive report update on where each group is. Then the next slide, slide 4, this is where we start focusing on I think the challenges that we're experiencing right now. How do we put this case study together? And I've given a couple of hints to, you know, go back online, have a look at what was done in previous years. Last year we had 4 outstanding case study final submissions. You can learn a lot on how those were laid out. And we just seem to be improving the standard every year. It's just quite amazing. But you're familiar with the slide by now, which is the grid. I'll call this a matrix, which is the 4 dimensions by the 5 modules. So if you look at the instructions below there, 1 to 6, or the guidelines rather. So your first step is really go back to your original dimensions and just scan through each module and tease out what was the essence of each module. And for example, on the ecological dimension, module 1 was all about climate change resilience. Module 2 was water supply design. Module 3 was a permaculture design or layout. Module 4 was how to design a carbon neutral energy design. And module 5 was the green building guidelines. So apply your minds now and see where is this relevant in your particular case study. You've got the background theory. How can you apply it now to your specific case study? as you start doing that, under climate change resilience, for example, you might want to do a background search on, what are the big climate change issues around your case study in that particular region, that particular country. What is the rainfall? What is the trends? Change in temperature, change in rainfall, maybe what are the threats regarding climate change, and are there any government adaptation and mitigation plans underway? So assemble this type of information and just literally dump it into a document. That's what we call step 2 there. This research, the research applicable for each module, should be compiled into a rough document called a scope or first draft. And this is uploaded to the platform. In the next slide or two, we'll explain how it's actually uploaded onto the platform. So then step 3, what do you do then with the scope document? Your fellow team members will probably have a look at it and give you comments. And that's when you start refining it into an interim document. So now it's more neatly organized. It reads well. And then step 4, as you start getting an understanding of what the other modules are all about, you start finding opportunities to integrate that particular model within its dimension and cross-cutting across the other dimensions and modules. And that's where pretty much, if you revise it at that stage, it's pretty much a final version. Now at that point is when you start item 5 there, you start building this matrix, and you start putting in each box a very, very high-level summary or a précis of each module. And we've got a template for how you write this up, which I'll explain in the next couple of slides. So imagine you now start putting together a high-level summary of this 4x5 grid. And what it appears like is like a patchwork quilt. And you'll see some patches are a bit dim, you don't have much information. Others stand out because that's the key issue within the whole case study and so forth. You then start looking at what really stands out, and you start creating the broader linkages around the 4 dimensions. And this is what we call the integration part. So when you start writing up your case study, plug away at each of these modules. And then once you've done that and you start integrating it, that's when the big picture starts coming together, and you start compiling what we call the strategic framework for the overall case study. And the next slide is an example that we've provided before of a very high-level strategic framework. So the worldview, we find, generally supports and provides information for the overall vision of the project, and also starts influencing its mission and values. The social dimension is really all about the mission and values, but it also starts influencing the vision, the worldview, and it does interact a lot with the overarching objectives. Especially bear in mind the final module of the social dimension is the bi-regional analysis, which is pretty much economics, but it's also stakeholder consultation. So that starts influencing the overarching objectives, and those in turn start influencing the more tangible outputs, which is the ecological dimension. So this is just an idea of how you can put together a very high-level strategic framework, which in essence is really your executive summary. So if you had to go and do, once you've done your case study and you think, well, what have I done this for? Can this project continue? And I hope that all these case studies give a certain amount of impetus to continue these projects. So that, for example, once you finish a case study and you have this high-level executive summary, you can use this as a pitch to crowdfunding, to get funding for the next couple of steps, to gear in other stakeholders, investors, and so forth. And there are other ways of putting together a strategic framework. There's this very Eurocentric system called the log frame, which you have to be an English professor to try and unravel that. Whereas this system here, it's called CAPS5, Compass Aligned Performance Systems. It's really very simple and down to earth. And I think during the ecological dimension, I shared with everyone examples of this type of planning. But I'll do so again on the design studio. So this is where you start gravitating towards your design integration, but it also starts formulating your overall executive summary. Now, how do we upload all these documents? Let's go to the final slide for this evening. I've used the example of Team One workspace on the learning platform. They're all set up exactly the same. So you got your documents that you can download, and then the action really starts here. This first circle that says summary of the 4 dimensions Team One, and it opens up into this number 1. That is the slide that it takes you to. So this is your high-level summary template that you populate per module, per dimension. This is the patchwork quilt that stands out eventually, and you use this to help you do the overall design integration. Then as you move down the page, you'll see another circle there called Documents and Summary Team One. That opens up into this template, which is number 2. I know the writing's quite small, but basically this is what it looks like. There's the 4 dimensions and Team One events, and then across the top it's got these weeks. So we are now in week 4. If you upload a document now, let's just say you have finished the module 1 of the worldview, and you click on where it says click here, it'll open up into this template which is shown in the box in 3. And you'll select the dimension. There's a drop-down menu. You'll select the module, and you'll select the version. Is it the scoping document? Is it the interim document? Or is it the final document? So you select all those, and then you choose your file from your hard drive or your iCloud or G Drive, wherever it is, and it's submitted. What will happen is that by referencing it according to these drop-down menus, it comes up with a standard name. And that file name will then appear in this grid on the block 2. So that anyone then can right-click it and open it up in a new tab and download it. So whoever is responsible for each dimension, or however you've assigned the workload to each other, you can upload your work in progress onto the platform here. You'd need to test it, obviously, just to see how you go about it. Gio and I we're busy testing it just now, and it does work, but it does need 1 or 2 refinements that we're going to attend to. And then a lot of your online messaging, your forum, your coordination of meetings, that can take place in this last bottom circle here that says team activities, that opens up into block 4. And this is where you've already started engaging with each other and coordinating meetings and so forth. I know there's been, besides this forum, there's been a whole host of other direct emails and WhatsApps and everything. And I was suggesting that you use WhatsApp to coordinate meetings. It works very well, especially if you want to have a quick Skype meeting with someone. And then you use email for more lengthy dialogues, or put them on the platform here so that we can see, we can monitor and provide oversight on what's happening. So I think that's it for tonight in terms of explaining, just giving you a few more tips to get you underway. But the crux is just start assembling and compiling as much information per module, per dimension as you can, and in accordance with how you guys have allocated the work amongst each other. So don't worry about the finesse of the documents. The final pruning and refining, that comes about later. If you've got relevant information, just dump it in there. And you can use MS Word, for example, or PowerPoint. You can put a lot of pictures and information and web links and everything in there. and anyone can download it and continue adding to it and uploading it again and so forth. So that's where we are now. And then we could go online to show you how to set up your preferences so that you can start receiving your daily emails and so forth. We did have a few teething problems with that, but I think we may have been able to resolve those. But I think let me pause at this point and see if there's any questions so far.
Hi, Ezio. It's Nick. I know I'm sort of a bit of an old stager and been around the block too many times, but I'm a bit overwhelmed by the process.
Okay.
I'm finding on our total fascination in getting my head around the problem and trying to do that. And the thought of loading process to this level on top, I'll have to take a while to actually adjust to that. I just, we're operating with emails at the moment and video conferences and this sort of thing. And it seems to be working, and one's loath to do anything to upset that nice balance that we seem to have. I understand what it's about, and I can get with it. But it just seems a bit overwhelming to me at the minute. So I just flagged that up.
Yeah, I think, Nick, in response to that, I think you guys have at least kept me in the loop with all your emails, and I'm happy with that,
Okay.
So I'm at least I know what's going on.
Yeah.
But if there was any critical discussion or something, then go back to the forum, and I would not expect all the extent of your daily emails to go on the forum at all.
Right. Okay.
I agree with you. That would be a bit overwhelming. So maybe the key discussions could be reserved for the forum discussion. If anyone takes any formal notes at one of your online meetings or jots down some stuff, you could well upload it onto the forum if you so wish.
Would it be? Oh, sorry.
A word here. I just want to respond a little bit to Nick's comment, because I don't think you're alone, Nick. I think probably other people share that same sentiment that all of a sudden it looks overwhelming. But I just want to emphasize that what we're looking for is to try to make the work as easy as possible for you. That, believe it or not, this is why we designed this process. However, what we're interested in, and you should focus on, is the final product. So if you have another way of getting there that works for you, this is something you need to discuss in your team, come to agreements about, what is the best way that you can generate a final design project that we can evaluate.
Okay.
Me is the focus here. If this helps, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
Do you agree, Ezio? I hope that I'm not saying...
No, 100%, Gio. In fact, I was going to add in another slide, which is the typical outline of what your final report ought to look like. But I held back. I thought this was already too much just to get this down. And then in 2 weeks' time, we can have the contents, because there's still quite a bit of time to go to compile the whole report. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll give you a good idea of what the content should be. And that will also, as Gio was saying, that shows you how to get to the end point very quickly. And then it's just going back to figure out what the space is to fill out. It's not as easy as that, but if you go back to the patchwork quilt, once that is populated, you've got 70% of the report done.
Good. And I don't know who wanted to speak that I interrupted there, but thank you for giving me that space.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether it would be okay to take a copy of, say, WhatsApp, if that's where most of the discussion happens, and we could just post it later in the forum discussions to keep you guys in the loop.
Yeah, or send us an invite to your WhatsApp group. So, just see the messages that are coming through. I'm loath to write novels on WhatsApp. I've got fat fingers that just hit 4 keyboards at once. So I'd rather use email for that. But at least I can see the trajectory of where the discussions are going, when the online meetings are happening, and so forth.
If I had left when you told me to let me still wouldn't have.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Can you repeat, Una? Oh,
Hello?
Yeah, did you say something to the group?
No.
Oh, okay.
I seem to have just got in. Sorry I was late. I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other comments or questions that we can help you with to advance your project?
This is Leo, if I can.
Hi.
Hi, Leo.
Hi. I just quite understand the structure here, and I'm just thinking, because if we are interested in the final product, that would be just got the group, the kickoff meeting. So I think that the Google disk with the collaboration in one file is something that would help us to ease the work, just to focus on the final product. Would it be possible to use it and just have SEO to have access to that, so that he can see the progress of that final output? And of course, we can just put the summary of 4 dimensions in this workspace. But if we can use also the Google Drive for that.
Yes, that would work for me. And I think when I joined your team meeting, you'd already laid out the typical contents, and you were pretty much there with the layout for the final report. It was just the design integration and the way forward to be included in there. So you're pretty much on target to knowing where you're going, and it's just putting in the meat and potatoes in the middle, which is the grid, the 4 by 5 modules, and plugging away at all those. You might find that to put it all on one Google document might become a bit cumbersome. Whereas if you work per dimension, maybe consolidate 5 modules in one Google document per dimension, you see how that starts shaping, and then you start collaborating and compiling that into one Google document, which is your final document, which would go through a couple of revisions until you submit it.
Mm-hmm.
I have experience from last year. There was one team that also put everything in one Google document. It became a little bit unwieldy in the early days because it was packed in with a lot of irrelevant information. So that's why I was suggesting, rather, if you go that route, have one Google document per dimension, and then as that has been refined and you know that that's more or less the final product, and at which point you then start populating the summary so we can see, oh, the work is there. Then you transfer that kind of final version into one Google document, and you start compiling and editing that one final document. So that's also possible. And I think, if that is the way that a lot of you are working, Gio and I might have to go back and just revisit how we've laid out the platform.
May I jump in? This is Heather.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there.
So I really appreciate you clarifying this, and also kind of giving us the go-ahead or the okay to move away from this format, because our group is not exactly doing a, like a physical eco-village. Our project is much more zeroing in on the economic dimension and right livelihood. Ezio, I think you have a sense of where we're going. And so to try and write reports that fill in each of these boxes actually kind of goes the other direction. Of course, our final product will be embedded in this framework and reference all of the dimensions, but not quite in the same way as if we were designing a specific project in a specific place. Does that make sense?
Table where you put a high-level summary per dimension and per module. Is that what we found in some of the earlier years when these case studies were being submitted? There was so much focus on answering, each module, but then the next section then was just conclusions, and that was it. So the case study was kind of left hanging. There wasn't any overall design integration. So that's why we came up with a template to say, put a very high-level summary in that template. And only once you populate that, you might find, oh, this is a thread, the common thread that actually integrates this wholeness. And that informs your strategic framework, which is also your design integration and your way forward. And this has been the missing link in the case studies from 2-3 years back. But last year and the year before, the students have started addressing this. And what we've found was that besides the write-up of each of the modules within the dimensions, we had a very good way forward that integrated everything, and there was a very clear understanding of what the next steps were. So this is why we intervened and put that particular table in there. And also, a lot of the earlier years, there wasn't a very strong executive summary. So, these case studies ended up becoming kind of academic reports. Whereas now we're hoping that you can actually use this report to take it to the next level, to say, let's go and use it for a crowdfunding pitch. You've got the executive summary, and you've got a very high level strategic framework. If you have to go and do a funding pitch, you've got 5 minutes to sell your story. You can't go and show them a 75-page report. You've got 3 slides to show them, to get your funding for the next stage. Similarly, if you want to attract investors, or in your case, Heather, where you're critiquing 1 or 2 planned developments, when those developers have their stakeholder engagement through the environmental impact assessment process, you can go and attend those meetings and say, allow me to talk, and you hand out your 3 slides. And you can stop a project in its tracks if you have got a good motivation like that. Whereas if you hand out a 75-page report, no one's going to read it. So this is why we put in this high-level template to actually help you do the design integration, and then that in turn informs the executive summary.
Right. Okay, good.
Okay. I think I'm going to try and go back to that slide because it's a very important slide, this one. There we are. So I don't know why I've got this writing in the middle of the screen, but as I said, this is your patchwork quilt, and only once you do this, you'll see what jumps out and makes this particular case study unique. So I'm thinking aloud now of case study number 5, which is Heather Becky and is it Lena? No, Elizabeth. So in critiquing a planned development, your major thrust in the ecological dimension is really what are the influences on climate change that are forcing this project to reconsider itself to be more carbon neutral, and the solutions for that is coming up with the green building technologies. You know, the recycling of the water design, and maybe having a look at your permaculture design. But you start getting an idea of what the key drivers are within that dimension. The next dimension is, you know, your global local economic impact. That is critical. Most of these developers bring resources from outside, they construct, and then the resources move off. There's no use of or very little use of local materials, local labor resources, local contractors, and how to create spaces for economic livelihoods. So that's addressed in your module 1 and your module 4 and 5 of the economic dimension. And then your social dimension is a lot of these greenfield developments, they've got very, very weak kind of beneficiary organizations. So one could try and get them more organized by helping them finding a common vision and maybe some institutional governance and leadership. And then the worldview is reconnecting this project with nature, you know, and how can one transform these new build developments and make them into living spaces, not just dormitory suburbs, for example. So those type of, I mean, I just gave an example now, but once you have this patchwork quilt of a high-level summary, you'll actually see what stands out as your key drivers to inform your strategic framework.
Very good. Are there any other questions? You can unmute your microphone if you do have one and just jump in. I think that's the best way to participate at this point. Questions or comments? If you have a comment, that is also very valuable. Ah, somebody figured out how to put up a hand. Go ahead, Hank. You can speak, and maybe you can tell us how you did that, because I couldn't figure out how to do it. Hank? Oh. Hi, Hank, can you hear us? We cannot hear you. No, maybe not. Okay.
Heather's got a question.
This is just to tell people how to raise their hand. If you go on the bottom and click on participants, a list of participants will show up, and at the bottom it says raise hand or lower hand.
Wonderful.
At the bottom, I don't see it at the bottom of mine. Maybe more?
It's in the footer of the participants box. You've got mute me and then raise hand.
Huh. I don't seem to have it, maybe because I'm the host.
Do you have the participants icon across the bottom of your main Zoom screen?
Yeah.
Click on it.
I did, and the participants little window shows up, but I don't see raise hands.
Yeah, it must be because you're the host. Yeah. You don't need to raise your hand.
I don't need.
Or mute yourself.
Okay. Anyway, anybody else have a question? Or you don't have to raise your hand. You can if you want. It's more fun. But you can jump in also with a question or a comment. If not, this is fine. This is just meant to be a short presentation to get you moving along in your project. And if you have the information you need, then we're all set. I see that Hank has his microphone open, but we don't hear you, Hank. I don't know if you can hear us. No. Can't hear you. Sorry. Maybe you can put something in the chat. All right. Well, Ezio, it doesn't look like we have any questions or any other issues.
Oh, there's, sorry, Hank has just written a message here.
Yeah, he wrote too bad, but I'm not sure.
Maybe he hasn't got a good connection yet.
I suspect that's what it is.
Yeah. But look, if anyone's got more detailed queries, and I'm happy to, to have one-on-one or with your particular team anytime from tomorrow onwards. So just let me know on WhatsApp, and I'll try and respond as soon as I can. Even during the weekend. There's no big rugby match this weekend in South Africa, but next weekend there are. So I'm free the whole weekend.
Glad to know that there is no rugby match this weekend.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Ezio, and thank you, everybody, for making the time to be in this live session. I hope that it was valuable and that all the information is useful to make your project move along.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.